It's time for another Monster of the Month. This month we're heading to the elemental plane.
This month we're talking about Fire Newts.
Alright, starting off, found in Volo's Guide to Monsters, Fire Newt can be found on page 142. There are two different kinds that are in this book. There's the Fire Newt Warrior and the Fire Newt Warlock of Imix.
So surprisingly, these creatures are actually considered humanoids. They're not elemental of any kind. They are just sort of a mix between lizards and fire itself. They're found in hot springs, warm mountainous regions, really anywhere you want that has any sort of lava flow or volcanic activity. And they are just like versatile little monsters. They look like nothing, like beat 'em up characters, but they're actually pretty sophisticated.
So Fire Newts, they've got a pretty sophisticated society. While they don't always live in the elemental plane of fire, they are found there oftentimes because, according to the little synopsis that they give you in Volo's Guide, a lot of them worship Imix, the Prince of Evil Fire. Fire Newts, they do a lot of blacksmithing and alchemy things. The Fire Newts, they're extremely religious to like a militant degree. So already right there with just that info, I mean, you can have a lot of little fun with that.
Going along with what he said, they are militant, and what's interesting about that is, while most monsters in D&D, they're a cohesive society, there are a few that aren't, obviously, like in every game, and you can make them how you want because it's Dungeons and Dragons. However, the printed story, Fire Newts, if they come across another band of them, they are not friendly. They are hostile to each other because they're all fighting over that heat source or that artifact or whatever you put in your game. So it's very unlikely on its face that you will find them interacting with each other. Maybe you will, and your players will find that surprising, but normally not, which could be fun.
Yeah.
Hooks and so forth.
Jumping right in, we'll take a quick look at their stats. As I said, they're medium humanoids. AC is 16, health 22, unless you roll it, and speed of 30. They are immune to fire, which makes perfect sense. And they speak Draconic and Ignan. And they are considered amphibious, so they can breathe in both air and under the water. The main thematic ability that the Fire Newt warriors get is called Spit Fire. The Fire Newt spits fire at a creature within 10 feet of it. The creature must make a DC 11 Dex saving throw, taking 9 or 2d8 fire on a failed save, and then half as much on a success. And that is a recharge of a short or a long rest for the Fire Newt. So, as a DM, however you wanna spin that. And also in the stats, if you look, there is a third stat block, but that is for the Giant Strider. And while it is a part of the Fire Newt Society, we're not going to cover that because it's not a Fire Newt.
Right, it is just their mount, and you can find that for yourself, and they're interesting as well, and they give a little backstory in them also. Yep. So, you touched on that they do the Spitfire, and it's 2d8. That's pretty good, seeing as the regular Fire Newt Warrior is only CR half.
Yeah.
That's pretty strong, even with the recharge. And they wear armor, because they're blacksmithing, more theme, so you could even give them more gear, because they would make it naturally, which I think is really cool. The fact that they're amphibious, you could put them, like he said, other places, and people wouldn't expect it.
Yeah.
Like we said in the beginning, there is a second type of Fire Newt in the society, and that is the Warlock of Imix. They are still medium, neutral evil, pretty good stats. They have an AC of 10, however, they can cast mage armor, up it to a 13 or higher, per DM preference. Everything else is the same, basically, same languages. They do get dark vision, and includes magical darkness. That's super important.
Very important.
They also count as a 3rd level spellcaster, and their spell save DC is 12, and a +4 to hit with spell attacks. They get a lot of different spells. I won't cover them all. Mostly fire related, but a few that they get that are fun are Prestidigitation if there's a cantrip, Guiding, or Guidance Light, Mage Hand, basically sort of little like a player would take. I really like that. But moving on to really good spells, they get Burning Hands, Flaming Sphere, and Hellish Rebuke. So they do get that character class Warlock sort of spells, which I think is really interesting. And they can cast them at higher because they are a 3rd level caster. They also get something called Imix's Blessing. And when they reduce an enemy to 0 hit points, they gain 5 temporary hit points. So that could be anything. It could be another Fire Newt. It could be your character that drops. They kill somebody, they get 5 temporary hit points, which is also really interesting for this low CR of an enemy. They're only challenge rating 1.
Yeah, that MX Blessing, it's very, very similar to, I believe it's one of the Warlock patrons. Pretty sure it's the Fiend. They get something that when you kill something, you gain so many hit points. I may be wrong on the patron, but
it's definitely a Warlock thing.
If you know which patron it is, please tell us down in the comments below. The Fire Newts that worship MX, as Chris said, they don't get along with other Fire Newts, basically because they see other bands of Fire Newts, other groups, as a threat to them getting closer to MX. They consider, whenever they go into battle against other Fire Newts as being touched by the Fire Lord. And they enter a nearly unstoppable, battle rage. The Warlocks of MX, they command the Fire Newt warriors, and they say, go out, you gotta prove your worth, bring back treasure and captives. They take the best loot, and they basically give it as a tithe to MX. I think there's a lot of fun RP, fun storylines you can do with that, especially if your group has a Warlock. Even better if they do the Genie Warlocks and say perhaps they're the water patron. Their patron doesn't get along with MX. So right there's so many little things that you can keep throw at your party, and just, why we got all these waves of Fire Newts? Well, probably because your Warlock's Genie doesn't like MX, and vice versa.
One of the other things I like going right along with that is, you said they brought back loot and captives, and they give it as a tithe. The remaining loot is split up among the best performing warriors of the Fire Newt Society, so there's more RP fun you could have. Like, hey, why kill us when we could give you more treasure than your leader got? That's fun stuff to do. They also, traditionally with the captives, keep them for a while, use them as slaves to mine and blacksmith. They also will roast them alive and eat them. So there's that. You could put a fun time factor on it.
Yeah.
With that sort of a thing. There's so many options for such a creature that isn't steeped in lore.
So, Chris, what are some ways that you would use the Fire Newt in your game that maybe a little out of the ordinary?
An idea I had is, during these times and everything's still getting back to normal, maybe you have a regular group that meets, and you are meeting, but one of your people just can't make it week to week, month to month, however long you play. Instead of just, in our case, usually using that character as almost an NPC and trying to make up a story and everything with them, and just, it still feels absent.
Yeah.
So I had an idea that the Fire Newts have captured this actual absent player and are preparing to make him a sacrifice to MX, or take things he has, or all of the above. So now your party actually has to go and rescue them, and that is just an easy hook to still make, and then you tell them the story, and still makes them feel like they're there, without having to have someone else run it, and so on. And I think that seems really fun as an idea, and will still, you don't feel like you're missing anything, and they don't feel like they've really missed anything. Baron?
So I had the idea, looking at it from they do a lot of alchemy, blacksmithing kind of things. I looked at it from that standpoint, and I had the idea that the party is hired by an alchemist to go and make a trade with these Fire Newts for some alchemical ingredient he needs. Well, unbeknownst to him, these Fire Newts actually want to capture the alchemist. So, they all meet up at the meeting place. The Fire Newts, they think the PCs are the alchemists, so they just capture all of them up. So then you can turn it into a fun, little RP sessions, no, we're not the alchemists. Or what it will probably turn into, a nice battle royale and the decimation of the Fire Newts.
I like that. I like that you went the alchemy route. There's so many, if you have those old school players, maybe they want those ingredients as treasure, and who knows what exotic thing or spell components or whatever thing that your game allows. That's really fun, and Fire Newts carry those kind of things on them because they all sort of do that sort of thing. So there's a lot of option. It's not just treasure anymore. Now it's stuff.
Yeah.
And you can, if your characters like professions, which are more and more books are coming out with them for D&D, this is another way to sort of introduce that into your game.
So if you and your party have ever gone up against any Fire Newts, tell us about what happened down in the comments below. We'd really enjoy to hear some of your guys' stories.
And if you like this video and want to see more D&D content from us, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our videos.
We upload a new video every week. So until next time, keep the dice rolling.